I know it's wrong to assume you have the answer, but do you ever get the urge to give them the answer? Does your heart go out to them? And
yeah, that happens all the time. When you're a therapist, stories sound familiar to you. We've been here before. And just the process of learning about oneself is very similar. So there are times that, someone brings a situation and I feel, here's the answer to that. And the quick thing would be to do, right, this is what you need to do. But no, you wait, allow the client to find the answer. So it's knowing how to hold back sometimes as a therapist as well and let them find the answer.
Yes.
It's always going to be better if they find the solution or they feel they have found the solution.
But is that also because as humans, many of us go through very similar struggles?
Yeah.
Is there maybe one or two things that are very consistent in therapy, types of problems, if you know what I mean?
So I would say, and I think therapy, whatever the model, is based on, as human beings, we learn to become pleasers of our environment rather than understanding ourselves. So just as a child growing up, you learn how to please the environment in order to possibly get what you want or your desire. So what happens as we get older is that we then become more focused on what's out there rather than what's internal. What I think my job as a therapist is actually to get you to start thinking about what's going on internally for you and listen to that internal voice, because that really tells you what is missing for you, what you need to do. So I think that is key to any therapy. Is the problem is you're more focused on the things externally rather than internally.
Is that to say then that the behaviors that we develop as children in order to, like you said, get what we want, to appease the people around us, especially maybe if someone grew up in quite a chaotic environment, the things they had to do to keep their parents happy, their siblings happy. So is it correct to assume that there is a reoccurring pattern of people, or a lot of them, maybe even more than half, their problem being that they haven't dealt with their development, their history, growing up, if that makes sense?
Yeah. We're all seeking to survive the environments that we're placed in. Yeah. So we're going to do what we need to survive those environments. So if you think about if you're in a really hectic environment and you're constantly living on trying to get through and survive that environment, trying to get through that day, then actually your life just becomes every day I'm getting up, trying to survive, trying to get through this. And that then becomes your pattern. And the likelihood is when you come into a therapy session, you're going to be really thinking about all the things that everybody else wants of you. And that's where your focus is. So my, sense is, as a therapist, I want you to try and get back to what you want, what's going on for you.
Which is easier said than done, because if you start therapy at 25, which is probably considered actually early, young people don't always go for therapy, but for the sake of argument, you start therapy at 25. You spent 25 years appeasing people around you, and the goal is within a 18-week time frame, maybe less. Somehow we have to get you out of that. Why does that sound like an impossible task?
Ugh. At 25, that sounds great, as you said. Can you, the fact that you're taking people into a therapeutic space who are in their 50s and 60s and have never been in a therapeutic space before, so then that becomes even more difficult. If there is an issue that they've been doing for the last 40 years, how do you change that poor behavior when you've been doing it for so long? So I think the longer you leave counseling or therapy, when you feel that actually it would be helpful, the longer you leave it, I think the harder it is to come into the space and make the changes that are needed often. Not always, but often.
Yeah, it's very challenging indeed. So, if there was an average age group, from your experience, what is the average age group of people who come into your work, into your office?
I would say the average would be generally in their 30s, generally female. Females access therapy. If I was even to look at cultural diversity, I would say white females are more open to coming into the therapeutic space, here in the UK at least.
So I have some stats for that actually.
Okay.
Now, 1 in 4 people in England will experience a mental health problem at some point during the year.
Mm-hmm.
But within these stats, 19% are often women and 12% are men that report mental health problems or symptoms of anxiety or depression.
Mm-hmm.
So men, as we all hear the stigmas all the time, men are told to not cry, to not express themselves, to always be strong. But now, in an environment, in a society like ours, that's really we're starting to see the effects of that
Mm-hmm.
on those men, and then their indirect effects on the women and the families that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you said it is generally female, but are you also noticing an increase in males in the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely I'm seeing an increase in males accessing therapy. So I think in general, just males and their relationships are changing. I think males are talking more even to friends and people around them. So I do feel that we are seeing a shift in the amount of men that are coming into therapy, but also the amount of men who are willing to be a bit more vulnerable and talk about issues, even if it's not in a therapeutic space, with friends or with other people. Yeah, we're seeing an improvement in that.
I think that's definitely important, because another statistic that comes up is that, so in the year 2023, the amount of people that chose to take their own life numerically was reported at 6,069.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? 6,069 people felt like...
Yeah, the UK.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was better to not live. But drastically, even though we just gave statistics for women being more likely to report and go to therapy, and you said women are more likely to be in my sessions, but of that number plus 6,000, 75% aren't men who decide to end things. So it's drastically skewed. You know, you have on one hand, if you just look at the referrals and the people who attend these sessions, you'd think women, they have more emotional problems. And then you look at such an extreme act, and it's 75% men. Wow, that's...
Yeah.
It's very skewed though, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is that in this country in particular, that's not necessarily been addressed. The fact that actually men are more likely to take their lives. So mental health services, government-funded mental health services, don't necessarily prioritize men or males, or encourage that, even encourage males to come into therapy. What we're seeing is actually they prioritize other groups. So I have, coming into being a therapist myself and wanting to provide therapy, one of my passions was I want to work with men, you know, and that's why I wanted to work within a men's prison in particular, because I knew that men were more able to access therapy and would feel free to doing that more so in a prison environment than any other environment.
I mean, it might be one of the only things that's good about their time in prison, if that makes sense. And because prison puts a halt on your life in many ways, there's no stigma to worry about. And stigma at that point doesn't even matter anymore. You're confined by cells. Who cares about social norms anymore?
And I think that's the key. What's one of the things that I realized when working in prison is that the isolation is what killed so many men.
Right.
Just being on their own. So memories were coming up that they couldn't, I guess, resolve with drink or with going out. violence, football matches, or whatever they would do to just sort of avoid that. So they were having to face a lot of these issues, and they would actually access therapeutic interventions. So coming to a therapist to talk through some of those things that were issues. So yeah.
Thank you for watching that clip. If you enjoyed it, here's the full podcast right here on my right, maybe your left. I'm not sure how YouTube works. Or here is another clip right here. Take care, everybody. See you on the next one.